The scream of shattering glass tore through the night, a jagged sound that ripped Ethan and Clara Harper from sleep. Ethan bolted upright, heart hammering, as Clara clutched the sheets, her eyes wide in the dark. The noise wasn't distant, it was close, too close, coming from the eastern side of their new home. Ethan stumbled out of bed, bare feet hitting the cold tile, and raced downstairs. The smell hit him first, sharp, chemical, unmistakable. Spray paint. He flung open the front door, and there it was, a shimmering veil of aerosol mist coating the massive windows that defined their desert retreat. No words, no graffiti, just a deliberate dulling of the glass, like someone had tried to erase the house's soul. In the distance, a car engine hummed, fading into the Arizona night. Clara joined him, her breath catching as she saw the damage. "Who would do this?" she whispered. Ethan didn't answer. He didn't need to. They both knew this wasn't random. It was personal. Ethan and Clara Harper, both in their late 40s, had moved to the gated community of Solace Ridge, just beyond Tucson sprawl, seeking a fresh start. Ethan, a former supply chain executive, had burned out on corporate deadlines. Clara, who'd spent years restoring vintage motorcycles, craved a quieter life where she could tinker in peace. The house they'd bought was a modernist, gem-clean concrete angles, desert-native landscaping, and those floor-to-ceiling reflective windows that caught the sunrise like a mirror to the heavens. The windows weren't just aesthetic. They were engineered for solar efficiency, bouncing back the desert's relentless heat. The property sat at the community's edge, facing open desert, a private sanctuary that felt like a reward for years of grind. They'd moved in during spring, when Arizona's air was still crisp, the nights cool enough to sleep with the windows open. Solace Ridge was pristine, smooth streets, uniform mailboxes, gravel raked with obsessive precision. Every house blended into the next. Beige stucco, terracotta roofs, shrubs trimmed to geometric perfection. Their home, though, stood apart, not loud but distinct, its glass facade a quiet defiance of the neighborhood's sameness. The trouble started small, almost imperceptible. Clara noticed it first on her morning walks, always at 6:15 a.m., when the desert was still waking. A black SUV circled the cul-de-sac at the street's end, moving slowly, never speeding up, always pausing just a beat longer as it passed their house. The driver was a man in his early 70s, silver hair cropped short, hands locked at 10 and 2 on the wheel. He never waved, never smiled, just stared through tinted glasses, his expression unreadable. Clara mentioned it to Ethan over coffee, half laughing. "It's like we're being cased by someone's grandpa." Ethan shrugged it off, assuming it was community security. The welcome packet had mentioned patrols, after all. But the SUV kept appearing morning, noon, sometimes late afternoon, always the same driver, always the same deliberate pause. Then came the first letter, slipped into their mailbox a week after they'd settled in. It was sealed, no stamp hand-delivered. Inside, a neatly typed message from the Solace Ridge Harmony Council welcomed them to the neighborhood, praising its cohesive aesthetic integrity. Buried at the bottom, under a section labeled Visual Standards, was a single line. Highly reflective surfaces such as mirror glass may be deemed disruptive to communal balance. Ethan snorted when he read it, tossing the letter onto the kitchen counter. "They're regulating sunlight now." Clara frowned, but said nothing, her fingers tracing the edge of the paper. She slid it into a drawer, but the words lingered. Over the next few days, the SUV's appearances grew more frequent. Sometimes it parked across the street, engine off, the driver motionless, staring at their windows. Clara started checking the security camera feed, but the vehicle was always just out of frame, never close enough to trigger the motion sensors. Then, a second note appeared. This one slid under their door while they were out. Handwritten, precise, it read, "The glare from your windows is causing discomfort. Please adjust accordingly." No signature, no explanation. Ethan's jaw tightened. "This is our house," he said, crumpling the note. Clara didn't respond, but her unease was palpable. It wasn't the words. It was the intrusion, the the quiet assumption that their space wasn't theirs. They met the driver soon after, though not in the way neighbors usually meet. Ethan was in the garage, wrist deep in a 1972 Triumph Bond VY Lee rebuild when a shadow crossed the doorway. He slid out from under the bike, grease smudging his forearms, and saw him tall, wiry, in a pressed linen shirt, standing just outside the property line. "Mr. Harper," the man said, voice flat. "I'm Victor Klein, chair of the Harmony Council. There have been concerns about your windows." Ethan stood, wiping his hands on a rag. "Concerns?" Victor nodded, his eyes fixed on the glass facade. "There. VY Sully abrasive. The reflection disrupts the street's rhythm." Ethan laughed, short and sharp. "They face the desert, not your houses." Victor's expression didn't change. "It's not about what they face. It's what they send back." He turned and walked away, his steps measured, no car in sight. Ethan watched him disappear down the street, a chill settling in his gut. The man hadn't driven. He'd been close by, waiting. The vandalism came 2 weeks later, the spray paint incident that shattered their sense of security. The sheriff's deputy who responded was sympathetic but unhelpful. Without footage of the act or a witness, it was just cosmetic damage, he said, scribbling notes. When Clara mentioned Victor in the notes, he nodded vaguely, mentioning community disputes that rarely went anywhere. "Talk to your counsel," he suggested before DRIVYing off. Ethan didn't bother hiding his frustration. "They're not our counsel," he muttered. That day, he drove to a hardware store and returned with floodlights, motion detectors, and high-definition cameras. Clara helped him install them, her hands steady but her eyes distant. They didn't talk about it, but they both felt it. This wasn't about aesthetics anymore. It was about control. The next morning, Clara VY cited the community office, a bland building near the clubhouse with beige walls and a faint hum of classical music. The receptionist, a woman named Lynn with a practiced smile, greeted her by name before Clara could speak. "I assume this is about the reflection complaints?" Lynn said, tilting her head. Clara froze. "Complaints?" Lynn explained that several residents had reported VY Sewell disturbances from their windows, framing it as a minor issue, a conversation starter. When Clara demanded to see the written policy, Lynn handed her a glossy booklet and mentioned that Victor Klein oversaw the NVY Environmental Cohesion Subcommittee. Clara left with the booklet and a sinking feeling. Back home, Ethan scoured the community website, finding a 50-page document filled with vague terms like neighborhood cadence and ambient unity. Reflective glass wasn't mentioned, but sustained VY Sewell discord was a phrase elastic enough to mean anything. The pressure escalated. An email arrived from the council, subject line, "Light hazard add VY sorry." It included a satellite image of their house, the eastern wall circled in red, urging them to mitigate reflective surfaces that compromise communal equilibrium. Then came a phone call. Clara answered, and Victor's voice was calm, almost soothing. "Mrs. Harper, I thought a direct conversation might clarify things. Your windows were approved under a temporary variance that expired when the pre-VYS owners left. They don't fit Solace Ridge's VY Shown." Clara asked for proof. Victor claimed the variance was in archival records, accessible only to founding board members. When she hung up, Ethan called a property consultant, a friend from his corporate days. 2 days later, the consultant confirmed no such variance existed. Victor was lying. The harassment grew bolder. Flyers appeared near their mailbox, not on their property, but clothes showing abstract diagrams of their house with arrows pointing away. Neighbors stopped while VYing, their smiles replaced by curt nods or averted eyes. One morning, Ethan found small orange stakes in the gravel along their lot line, each marked with a number in black ink. Tucked under a shrub was a laminated sheet, a blueprint of their eastern wall, redlined with measurements and the word nonconforming stamped in bold. Clara's voice was tight when she saw it. "They're planning something, Ethan. They think they're entitled to it." The breaking point came with a formal letter from the council, taped to their door in a sealed envelope. It declared their property under Re-VYEW for architectural incompatibility, citing non-existent clauses and scheduling a VY-SUL impact hearing. Their consultant warned them it was a shadow process, designed to look official without legal weight. Ethan and Clara responded with a cease and desist letter through their attorney, demanding proof of the council's authority. No reply came. Instead, 3 construction dumpsters appeared in their driveway overnight, filled with rotting wood and rusted metal. One bore their old address from their pre-VYS home, scratched out in marker. The waste company claimed it was an error, but the precision felt deliberate. Their insurance pro VY'd sent a notice next, hiking their premium by 40 fan-tram due to community-reported reflective VY tie risks. When Ethan challenged it, the agent admitted a local liaison had flagged their property, but no name was pro-VY dead. Their landscaper quit without explanation, and days later, their xeriscaped front yard was vandalized cacti, sliced in half, agaves uprooted, a copy of their landscape plan left behind with visual obstruction scrawled across it. Clara's hands shook as she gathered the plants. "This isn't about the windows," she said. "It's about us." They hired an independent assessor who confirmed their home met every municipal code. Armed with the report, they attended the council's hearing, not to plead, but to confront. The room was sterile, filled with neighbors who avoided their gaze. Victor sat at the head of the table, his voice smooth as he spoke of communal harmony. Ethan presented the assessment, his tone firm. "Our home is legal. Your campaign isn't." Clara added, "You're not protecting the neighborhood. You're punishing difference." Victor dismissed the session without comment, promising a response within days. The response came in the newsletter declaring their home out of alignment and urging voluntary compliance. Then, new stakes appeared, a thin wire strung between them, marking their lawn like a crime scene. A note followed, slipped into their mailbox. "All light must be subdued." Ethan stared at it, his anger GIVYing way to resolve. "They want us to break," he said. Clara nodded. "Then we don't." They filed a complaint with the state attorney general, alleging coordinated harassment. The response was slow, but the acknowledgement was enough. The pressure began to ease. Flyers stopped, stakes vanished, neighbors softened. Victor faded from VYEW, replaced by a new council voice promising transparency. The Re-VY said design standards dropped their vague threats, aligning with city codes. Ethan and Clara made no changes to the house. Instead, they fortified it new insulation, a rainwater system, a garden of resilient desert plants. They weren't pro-VYing a point. They were reclaiming their space. On a cool autumn evening, they sat on their patio, the windows catching the sunset's fire. No one watched. No notes arrived. Ethan raised his glass. "They wanted our peace." Clara smiled. "They don't get it." The light blazed on, unyielding, and the desert stretched out before them, silent and free. If you were the one in this story, how would you react? Would you stand up and fight back, or accept the unreasonable pressure and control from the HOA? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe, like, and share this VY Deo with more people. Your small action gives us the motivation to keep bringing you more intense and engaging stories. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next VY Deo.